Okay, good morning again, Futex traders. I do hope that everybody's listening in, and obviously the scheduling has gone slightly astray because we've got the QIR bang over 12. So brought forward the market talk for half an hour, and I'm going to try and keep it down to 10 minutes or so. I just want to remind you of the context that we had yesterday. We were talking about the Eurostoxx, we were talking that we were a little bit higher, and certainly my analysis was more looking for a push back up the page, looking for this low of the day to come in, and there were a few places. Now obviously we had this whole area that went very, very wrong, but even so, when we're moving into this area, for me personally, if you're going to address the markets in the correct fashion, you should actually be looking at still purchasing this area. I don't see the logic behind somebody punching into shorts when we're coming to an area that has been identified as major support. Now, irrelevant of what happened, that really should have been your first hypothesis, and this is an area for me that you should have been looking to purchase. The second area that we were looking at was if we got to move through here. We were talking about this secondary area here, and so this really sort of started at 03, which was the 50%, and extended all the way down to 94. Which was your VPOC, and you can see that actually what we did was hold this TPO low here. So again, although there were two trades that we were looking to do in these areas, kind of both of these really were predominantly looking for that sort of purchase. Now I count myself in the camp that I'm fairly lucky. I've done two trades. I'm very small up. I managed to lose money obviously in this area here, but did manage to hang on long enough buying this at tail down here and run it back up to the midpoint. So that's how I've approached it, and that's how I've gone about it. I haven't done many trades, but certainly when I was in this trade down here, it was one that, really I had to look to run because, the market was moving around enough that that's how, I was looking to sort of make my money back. Now I'm just going to drop this onto a 5-minute chart, and I'm going to go through one trader's trades specifically. And I'm not going to mention the trader's name, but what will be of interest is if that trader actually recognises these trades as his own. And they only really encompass maybe about an hour's worth of trade, I think from about 8:23 through to about 9:30. Now, the first trade that this trader took was selling 19s. And he did this at 8:23. So he did this in this area here. So he was selling 19s. He also sold one at 21 and one at 22. And then he stopped all of those out at 22, 23 and 24, presumably on this bar here, because I know that this trader held that trade for 25 seconds. So, let's think about that. He sold into a massive area of support, an area where even if he disagrees that the market is going to be bullish at this point, it's at least going to slow down enough as the market auctions that area. But what this trader's saying is that he thinks that selling 19s and 21s, he thinks that he's going to have timed the auction process of the market so well that he's going to stop himself out after one tick and not even half a minute later. So, that was the trader's first trade, and looking at it, it's fairly fortunate, I guess, that he did stop himself out. So what was his next trade? He waited from a high of 36, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars lower, and he sold 08s. So the Euro stocks have moved from 36s to 08s, the best part of 30 ticks, and has been one time framing for 6 bars the whole way down. This trader sells 08s. Any guesses as to where he might have stopped these out? Because what he's saying is that he's decided after 28 ticks, this has got further to go, and he stopped himself out at 10. And after stopping himself out of 10, let's think as to what this trader is saying. He is saying that I expect after a 28 tick sell-off, the market to continue in that direction without even a 2 tick pullback. How in God's green earth does this make any sense? And he took this trade. This was the longest trade he had of the day. And he had it for 50 seconds. I can't understand the logic behind that sort of trade. And then not only after selling the 08s and stopping himself out at 10s, he's then resold 10s. So after thinking, actually, I'm happy to lose the 15, 16 pounds because 08s are no longer a good sell. 10s are such a good buy that I need to buy 10s to cover my trade. He's then resold 10s. He did this not 20 minutes later or an hour later. He did this 40 seconds later. What has changed that has made the market a must buy at the price of 10 to a must sell at the price of 10 40 seconds later? And please do not say price action, because none of you are going to get away with using that as an excuse anymore, because it's bullshit. And what do you think happened to those 10s that he sold? Well, he added selling at 11s, and then he covered at 12s. On this exact candle, this red candle here that I'm highlighting, he paid the high of that candle. He didn't even wait for it to go a tick higher than this candle here. He paid the high of this candle here. 30 seconds later. How is this a winning strategy? How is this a winning formula? How does this make sense to anybody? You're just wasting money. The market is designed and set up that 2 ticks is just, it's slippage. You can't trade that way. You just can't. So after stopping himself out at 12s, the market actually did come off. Okay, the reason he stopped himself out at 12s is because this guy has got no bollocks to hold a trade. Simple. That's not to say that he hasn't yesterday or the day before or the day before that, but what it is to say is that today, this trader has got no balls to hold a trade. And any trade he puts on, he is going to lose money on because he is covering it after 30 seconds for a tick. And he was right. That's the annoying thing. He was right. But you can't be that right that it at least doesn't go bid against you. Think of what you're doing. You're actually asking the market to give you a fill whilst remaining offered. How often does that happen? Seriously. How often do you sit on an offer in the Euro stocks, get your fill, and it doesn't go bid against you at least? So the second it goes bid against you, you're faced with an instant decision. The second someone high ticks it, you're going to be out. Or the second an algo builds the bid up, you're going to be out. You're always going to see something to get you out, if that's your strategy. If you are only ever going to make money on the trades that you get filled on, where the market stays either bid or offered underneath you, you're not going to make money. Because that must happen once every 20 times to me. Most of the time it goes bid or offered once I've got my fill, because that's just the design. Most of the time it will go bid, bid, or offered, and I'm straight offside. So you have to have conviction in your trades. So then carrying on, this trader missed the sell-off, missed the buy that we were talking about, and the market starts moving up. Has this trader sat back and learnt from any of his trades? It's arguable. At least he didn't start buying up here just quite yet. We'll get to that. But what he actually did is, instead of buying support, he actually bought straight back into resistance. Okay, he bought here. He bought 10s on these two candles, sorry, 9s and 10s on these two candles here. So we have moved back up. Now this was where I was pretty patient, and I know Wackus was patient, because this was a hard trade. We were long and invested down here, or in my case I think it was 03s, 04s, and we are coming into resistance. So actually the psychological mental battle that I know Wackus and myself were having was actually, do we cover this trade here? Or can we see if this market pops through and starts getting to the 50%? And actually we both decided that we saw someone reloading on the ladder, and we decided to sit through it. But this trader's getting in here. He bought 9s, he bought 10s into resistance. What do we think he did? He held the trade for 15 seconds and took a loss. Sold 9s. Just 15 seconds later, from whatever was an instantaneous buy, he sold 9s. And here's the real kicker. You know I love this trade. You know I absolutely adore this trade. After buying 9s and 10s and losing money at 9s, he bought 11s. Oh, I love that one. Where 9s was such a screaming sell, another 15 seconds later, 11s were a screaming buy. That is the doozy of all trades. I love that one. And then he scratched it. And actually, again, he was right, but he scratched it. And then what did he do? This was the last two trades that sealed the trader's morning as being highlighted of the trader I must talk about today. He waited through all of these bars. Having done the same down here, he waited through all of these bars, all of these, even this bar he waited. Where did he buy? Oh, 31s. Oh, just beautiful. Just a beautiful trade. 31s. He's waited through the 50%. He's waited 35 ticks off the low of the day, and he's paid 31s. The miracle of this is that actually he got his scratch away, and he scratched them, and he held it for 30 seconds. And then he waited through all of this as we come back down, and the final nail, he sold 22s and paid 23s. 17 seconds. So the longest trade that this trader has had over the course of the whole day has been 50 seconds. His overall average time in a trade is less than 5 minutes. I think it's all fair to say most of us have had shits that last longer. 5 minutes over the course of what is now 4 hours 45 minutes. he has been involved for less than 5. And the majority of the strategy seems to be reliant upon thinking he understands price action, or relying on the fact that the market will stay offered once he's filled short, or stay bid once he's filled bid. And that's just, it's not going to happen. It's impossible. This, thankfully, he's only trading 1 lots, but he's built into positions of 2s and 3s. But this has been the biggest waste of 160 quid I have ever seen. There was no rhyme nor reason to any trade that was taken. There was no big picture thoughts. I don't mind a trader buying 10s and getting caught. It's the right trade. I don't mind a trader not getting filled at 95, 94 because it didn't get there. I don't mind a trader getting run over at a midpoint or a VWAP or a Bollinger or a moving average or any of these things. But when I see things that are so completely and utterly contradictory to what the market, how the market actually is designed and how the market actually behaves, it drives me insane. It really does. Because by design, you are never going to meet the market, ever. The market is designed a certain way, the market trades a certain way, and in essence, the market looks and attempts to find value a certain way. And all of these trades, there's no thought to the big picture, there's no thought to the auction process, there's no thought to even support and resistance. We're getting infatuated by the ladder, and we've also not got the courage or conviction to stand behind our beliefs. And how can you if you're taking loss after loss? It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You're losing 7 quid at a time. £7.50 a time is what you're losing. So not only is it an absolute disastrous set of trades, but if you've done that 20 times, how are you ever going to grow confidence? If 20 times, 20 paper cuts. You know, if you think of the actual, if every time you pick up a piece of paper you were to get a paper cut, would you still pick up that piece of paper after the 5th time, the 10th time? Like touching an electric fence. How many times would you need to do it to realise that it's going to hurt? And yet when it comes to trading, that analogy doesn't seem to hold weight, because you've done the same thing 20 times on the trot. I'm going to leave it there. We're coming up to the QIR. Obviously, this is very focused on one sole trader, and I haven't mentioned names because I don't want him to feel bad or feel like, you know, a fool in front of everybody. And the reason that I mention it is that so many other people have that same issue. He's absolutely not alone in this. Absolutely not alone in having the same issue of not being able to run a trade, not being able to stand by their convictions, not being able to run a trade to target and panicking out at the flash of a ladder. He's not alone in this. If it were just him, it wouldn't be worth me speaking about it on here. It's a common theme. There are common trades within the trades that I have discussed that each and every one of you does, that needs to be addressed and eradicated. And I'm fairly sure that the people that are listening in or tune in or watch the video of later will be able to empathise with it as well. I generally get some people saying, you could have been speaking to me, or were you speaking about me, and it isn't then. But that's how generic the same mistakes are. But what it does mean is that though those mistakes are generic, it probably also means that throughout the learning curve of every single other trader, they too have done the same thing, but they have risen above and they have conquered that issue. And the positive note should really be that each and every one of you who is still making these mistakes can rise above that issue. You just have to, first of all, like an alcoholic, acknowledge that there is an issue. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I will speak to you all again at 2 o'clock, and as ever, please trade professionally.